I firmly believe that Far Cry 3 is one of the greatest video games of all time. However, I had never played a single other Far Cry game until now. Today, I want you to join me as I play and rank every single Far Cry game out there, from where it all began to the polarizing newer installments and even some unorthodox spin-offs as well. I'll be crowning one game as the best in the series with the S+ ranking and one as the worst in the series with the F ranking. But go ahead and let me know your favorite and least favorite Far Cry games down below as we get started. Far Cry 1 was developed by Crytek instead of Ubisoft, and it shows. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. This game is just way different than any modern title. For starters, it is an extremely linear experience. Sure, the levels are a little more open worldish, but you're definitely playing in a secluded area that's sort of on rails. But that doesn't stop the game from giving you boats, cars, and even hang gliders to traverse the levels. With this, the gameplay is actually fairly immersive for being a game made in 2004.
Wait, this sounds like SpongeBob's door.
It takes place on a tropical island, sort of similar to the Far Cry 3 experience that I'm used to, and you play as Jack Carver, who's ex-Special Forces, transporting a journalist who's then attacked and separated from each other, to which you end up on said island. You pick up a mysterious phone and meet Hoyt, who's your guy in the chair, and instructs you on how to live as you discover more of what's going on the island, and in turn how to defeat Dr. Krieger, who's the antagonist of this game. And I'm not gonna lie, I actually enjoyed this story. I know it is completely dated, like it has that 80s action hero vibe, and the voice acting is pretty hilarious at times.
Who are you?
I'm the guy who's going to tell you how to survive. Call me Doyle.
How do I know I can trust you?
And then about halfway through, seemingly out of nowhere, actually, the game takes this huge, like, sci-fi twist. And I actually really like this, and it works pretty well for Far Cry, because that's, like, the whole genre of the game is, like, you know, like, what on earth is going on? And this is exactly what that is. The Crytek engine, which is actually the same engine that Crysis ran off, reminds me of the Source engine from Half-Life and, you know, like, all the Valve games. And this game also just, in general, reminds me of Half-Life, especially with the sci-fi stuff. It is, like, very Half-Life-y. The sci-fi twist is that Dr. Krieger is actually cooking up, like, these humanoid mutants called Trigens. So you're actually fighting, like, pretty much like the equivalent of like aliens in this game, which again, you don't really see that in other Far Cry games. And in a really weird way, I feel like this game sort of like inspired Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, just because one of that 80s action hero vibe, and two, it's also got like some sci-fi going on. But if I want to make one thing clear about this game, is that this game is so hard. Like, not even Dark Souls hard. This is like so hard it's not even remotely fun and extremely frustrating. Enemies have aimbot. Like, the little stealth that's in this game just doesn't exist. Like, when you alert one guard, you alert like the whole entire lobby. What the like, what am I supposed to do there? And enemies just like shoot you through walls even without being detected. Like, it must be like the AI thing, but like, it is so unbelievably frustrating. Frustrating enough to where I had to play the majority of this game on God mode despite playing on the easy difficulty. And I'm not exaggerating here. Like, there's just one mission where I had God mode on the entire time and I was supposed to die like 90 times. Like, that's the amount of damage I took because of how unforgiving this AI is. And also, maybe it's me just being stuck in the future, but like, this game is extremely slow. And I don't mean that like in the pacing or the story. I mean like the genuine like speed of Jack Carver, especially when you're in water, is insanely slow. And look, I know this game is over 20 years old. For the time, it was probably really good. I could see why a lot of people would like this game, but going back and playing it just didn't age well. This is a C tier. With the success of Far Cry, Ubisoft wanted to cash in on some of the console revenue lurking around the Xbox, and thus Far Cry Instincts was born. Loosely based off of the original story, but more so a reimagining of said story. Every character gets a new voice actor, and the events of the first game never occurred essentially, but this game basically is the first game over again, but just worse. To start with, the controls in this game are abysmal. The aim assist like doesn't really work, and since this is a console game, I'm not playing this on mouse and keyboard, it's all controller.
Dude.
And on top of the aim assist, like, there's an insane input delay. I don't know, it's because I was playing like the Predator edition, which is like the 360 version. That's both the games, which we'll get to in a second. But I had a crazy input delay. Like, even just simple tasks like pausing the game felt like clunky. And the difficulty's still there. It's not as hard as the first one, but since the controls are terrible, it might as well be. Where this game changes a lot from the first one is, instead of just like, you know, killing Dr. Krieger and liberating the island from all the Trigens, you actually get ingested with some of that Trigen sauce and have these mutant abilities. You have an increased melee lunge, a super jump, and like super speed, and I think you have like a predator vision as well. It's pretty cool, I'll be honest. I did like this. But I will say the time you actually get to like use these abilities is very limited because like how you replenish it, the item you use for that is extremely rare. So I just found myself usually just using the lunge out of all these because it was a one-hit kill. So I guess that was nice. But other than that, like you barely get to use the other abilities. And like I said with Far Cry 1, the level design is pretty A to B, and that's the similar concept here, but it's even more lazy on this one. It really is just like, it's almost like every level is like a canyon and you're just like moving through it until the end. There's rarely ever an objective. It's really just kill everything and get to the end, like just like any other like platformer, I guess. Also, when an alarm goes off once you get these powers, there's like an extreme ringing in your ear that is extremely annoying, and that certainly was not helping me enjoy this game.
I have visual contact. Ah, shit! Turn that fucking thing off!
But on the contrary, this game did offer the first ever like accessible level editor in a Far Cry game, and on a console. I mean, that's pretty impressive, so definitely give them props for that. But that definitely does not safeguard this game from the criticism that it deserves, because it's still just a total mess. And similar to Far Cry 1, I can see why people would like this game, especially if you had an Xbox and didn't have a PC but wanted to play Far Cry. I'm sure this was an awesome time as a child, but not good enough of a time to age well or give it anything better than a D tier. Some people must have really liked Far Cry Instincts because it got a sequel. Enter Far Cry Instincts Evolution. By the way, I want to make it clear that I played both these games on Far Cry Instincts Predator, which is the 360 version that's both games in one. So I'm just going to go ahead and clarify that. I don't think there's much difference between the games, but just throwing that out there. Following the events of Instincts, Jack Carver is seen on vacation where he lets the hormones get the best of him and is tied up in an arms deal gone wrong. I don't know what happened between Instincts and Instincts Evolution to where Jack Carver just got like the 007 level of like, I need to get some pussy, because he is just like so chronically horny in this game, and it's kind of funny, honestly.
Honey, I'll drive whatever you want.
Damn.
I need help with something.
Something dirty?
Are you complaining?
Well, not if we can go again.
But Jack embarks on a similar story that involves using his predator powers to take down Samiru, who also has predator powers. From what I can tell, Instincts Evolution is the exact same engine that Instincts ran on. Same guns, same enemies, like everything about it is just the exact same. The only main differences I can think of is that 1, you start with the predator powers, which it was actually really nice. And 2, you get to actually use those predator powers way more often because there's these like little flowers scattered around each level that give you back up to 100. And 3, the level design is way more in depth in this game. You actually have like levels where you need to like go to multiple locations, like the first level. Like the first level where you have to go to 3 separate islands and like blow things up and then like go to the end of the mission, whereas before it was just go to A to B. There's still a lot of those go to A to B levels on this game, but not near as much as it was in Instincts. Also, this game is much shorter, which I actually like that. Instincts was a little bit too long for how boring of a game it was, but Instincts Evolution is like just the right amount. I actually beat this game in one sitting. It was pretty simple, and like, again, it wasn't much better than Instincts, but definitely better enough to like make me not hate playing this game. I do think it's the better version, although the reviews seem pretty polarizing. If anything, favored Instincts, which was just mind-blowing to me. But regardless, I still would not go back and play this game. It is a C tier. Far Cry Vengeance was a remake or yet another reimagining of Far Cry Instincts Evolution, but this time being exclusive to the Wii. That's right, a spin-off of a spin-off that's a reimagining of a sequel. And if that wasn't confusing enough, this game is also like different enough from Evolution to where, I mean, it's still definitely the exact same game, but there's like the first level's different, and there's a couple of different like new characters and characters not in the game. I don't know why they did this. And like Jack is a little less horny, like you don't get to see him like posted up with Cade in the bed. But probably the biggest difference about this game is the motion controls. That's right, this was during the era of the Wii where like every single developer wanted to make a game like based off of motion controls, and first-person shooters were the genres that were hindered the most by these kind of motion controls. What really sucked about these motion controls were even like the most basic actions were bound to motion controls. Jumping was with the nunchuck, and like healing yourself was with the Wii remote, and then even aiming down sights was like jabbing the Wii remote forward, which was just so annoying.
No fucking way.
Everything about this was horrible. Like I said, this is a copy paste of Evolution with not enough differences to make it its own game. I mean, like the Predator abilities kind of function differently, and that's like really about it as far as gameplay goes. I don't even know if the people responsible for the port just like forgot to add music to the game, but there are parts where there's literally just no sound or audio whatsoever. It honestly feels like you're playing like a backroom game. But you can probably gather that this is a much lesser experience of Far Cry Instinct's evolution, and since I wasn't really crazy on that game to begin with, like, this game was really bad. And once I was like an hour in and I realized this was a copy-paste experience, which I didn't know about that until I started playing it, I actually didn't finish this game. But I played enough to know that this is an F-tier experience and the worst Far Cry game out there. Who's ready to get pissed off? Far Cry 2 is where the blueprint for what the Far Cry gameplay loop was born. Set in a war-torn African country, you choose your character, who as far as I'm concerned doesn't really change a single thing about the game, and then are set on a mission to take down the Jackal, who is an arms dealer fueling the war between both factions. In order to track the Jackal down, you do missions for each factions, and let me tell you straight up, these missions have absolutely no substance. For starters, what you're actively doing has nothing to do with the Jackal. You're just like, essentially, the game basically revolves around earning brownie points for each side so you can like get intel. And then the level design is also very stale. It's basically one of two things: go to this location, blow something up, or go to this location and kill someone. I really wish that was an exaggeration, but it really isn't. But the rewards for completing missions and side missions is you get blood diamonds, which is this game's currency, and they're used for buying and upgrading your guns, and there's like a lot of guns to choose from, so I will give props to that. And the gunplay is also very realistic, with like lower tier guns jamming frequently the more you use them, and then like higher tier guns obviously not doing that. While on that topic, we can go ahead and talk about all the attention to detail this game has, and there is a lot. I mean, for crying out loud, this was the first game that had like those disgusting and brutal healing animations. But Chromecrat made a really good video showcasing how much more realism there is in Far Cry 2 versus the newer games, and it's really impressive to see how much thought and effort was put into this game, especially for coming out in 2008. Like the whole like fire mechanics and physics could like, you can start like full-blown forest fires, which is really neat. But back to the bad, since this was the first like open world Far Cry game, that means like a lot of driving and just traveling in general. And when you're driving around, since there's two enemy factions that are trying to kill you, but you're also working for, like, every single trip, whether it be part of a mission or just cruise in the open world, results in just getting targeted by these factions. And even if you drive past them, they're going to somehow catch up to you and destroy your car. You're going to get out, waste ammo to kill them, and then take their car, and then it's just going to happen again 3 minutes later. It is frustrating. The AI in this game is unforgiving. They're always going to be around at any corner, and they just never stop targeting you. And since, you know, again, Far Cry is supposed to be a stealth game, that is just not an option in this game either. Since you're already completing like a dull mission to begin with, and then having this mechanic just like sprinkled throughout is just not fun. Also, there's the buddy system, which lets you have like alternate approaches to some missions, which adds like 20 or even like 30 minutes, I swear, to these missions that are already really long. And there's like little to no reward for doing so. So I just did like the vanilla playthrough, if you will. And if these things weren't annoying enough, there's also a malaria mechanic built into the game where you have to take your malaria pills or else you'll just die and get sick. And it is just another thing that's just really annoying. I know for people who really like immersion in their games, this is probably tickling that it's really hard. But when you're just trying to go from A to B, no matter what it is, if it's in a mission or just like traversing the world, and you have a bunch of AI and then sprinkle in that malaria mechanic, like, it is so annoying. Also, I don't know if I was doing something wrong. Apparently PC version of this game has a quick save, but I didn't figure out how to do that. And one time I died and I literally lost, it was like 45 minutes. It was maybe like an hour of gameplay that I just completely lost just from one death. So that was really annoying too.
Fizz eyes. Orlando Magic.
Are you fucking kidding me? Regardless, I do appreciate what Far Cry did for the franchise, and it's like, I'm pretty sure it's a lot of people's #1 Far Cry game, but for someone who's never played it like when it came out and went back to playing it now, it did not age well. This is also a C tier game. S+ tier. Totally joking, but as I opened this video, I said that Far Cry 3 is one of the greatest video games I have ever played, and I still stand by that when replaying it for this video. I think this is easily the best setting for a Far Cry game, not necessarily the island vibe, even though that obviously does fit the theme very well, but more so that like a vacation with all your friends as like, you know, there's like this rich privileged kid, and then having to just get your whole world turned upside down, like, you know, watching your brother die and then just being like, all right, fend for yourself, go save your friends. Like, That's a pretty cool setting. But Jason Brody's the best protagonist, Voss is the best antagonist, and the Rakia are the best like rebel group as well. So I mean the stars really just aligned for this to be a kick-ass story, and that's what we got. Far Cry 3 took the concept of Far Cry 2 and improved upon it in every single way. The tattoo system was my favorite addition. Looking at things you didn't have unlocked to see a preview video of what said skill point would do for you incentivized you to keep grinding to get that new unlock. And since the later stages of this game are pretty hard, you're gonna have to use all your new abilities in tangent with each other to not only beat the game, but also put a little flair into your gameplay. Seriously, there is an entire subsection of like the Far Cry fan base that just does like these trick shots when it comes to like liberating outposts, and it is insane. The liberating of outposts and destruction of radio towers was designed between the perfect blend of not too tedious but rewarding enough that you're not only going to want to do each and every one of them, since this was how you unlock not only new weapons but side quests as well. Then the hunting in this game was another key new element, directly incentivizing the player to track down each animal required to craft whatever item you're trying to upgrade, carrying more primary weapons, a larger backpack, more throwables, and so on. Then you got to the final tier of the upgrade where you had to do like the side quest for said animal that's like the rare animal, you know, like the white alligator or whatever it may be. And that was also pretty fun because like you didn't just have those quests unlocked, you had to do some poking around to get them, and it made you want to go poke around to find those quests, which I think is a perfect way to get a player to play something other than just the main story. Round this game off with the best character transformation that we haven't even come close to in any sequels beyond Far Cry 3, and you have the best Far Cry game in the series, and I think most people would agree with that. Far Cry Blood Dragon is a spin-off title that runs off the exact same engine and foundation as Far Cry 3. Set in the future, you play as Rex, who's a cyber soldier set down to take down Ike, and this takes place on a similar Far Cry 3 map with a cyberpunk makeover. The title introduces new guns and vehicles while also being a stripped-down experience. And I do not mean that necessarily in a bad way. When I mean stripped down, I mean it's just kind of like watered down in almost every way. Since this game's only $15, I'm pretty sure at launch, obviously you can get it for way cheaper now. The game is much shorter. There's also no more skill points. You still level up, but when you level up, you just like unlock new abilities automatically, which honestly I kind of liked in some ways. And the game is also significantly easier, at least in my experience, because you're a literal cyber soldier. But these things are what make this game such a perfect spin-off title. This is like every bit of what a spin-off title should be, unlike something else we're going to talk about later. Basically, this is just more Far Cry 3 with a new coat of paint and a few new changes to the formula. Outposts are replaced with garrisons, which are used to keep the blood dragons at bay. You can sprint and swim insanely fast, and even the story is now told through a comic book-like cutscene. But like I said, Far Cry 1 had that 80s action hero vibe, but this like is 80s action hero. This might as well be an 80s action hero game. It's got plenty of callbacks to like Terminator and RoboCop and stuff. I mean, like the shotgun he has is literally like the Terminator shotgun, which was really cool. The dialogue is super corny and cheesy. The writing is funny. I mean, everything about it is just like stupid in a good way. But the bang for your buck here is unparalleled. $15, it's worth it. But I think you can probably get it on Steam for like $5 right now. And this game is an A tier. To follow up the massive hit of Far Cry 3, we got Far Cry 4, which is set in the fictitious country of Kyrat, which is in the Himalayas. The story follows AJ or Ajay. I swear they say both names in this, AJ or Ajay. Not really sure which one it is. But he visits Kyrat to spread his mother's ashes when, you guessed it, shit hits the fan. And then the game follows AJ as he's just like slowly revealing both of his parents' past in Kyrat, and there's just like a lot of mystery that keeps getting unveiled the more you play the game, which I really like that part about the story. But pretty much everything else about this story, kind of lame. It's not like bad, but just like I didn't really care. Pagan Min is an awesome antagonist, and honestly up there with Voss. I could see why someone might like him more than Voss, which is a really big accomplishment. But then all the side characters, like they're just so boring. Part of these rebel missions, you're supposed to pick whose mission you want to do instead, and I didn't care about either character enough to like give a shit about the morals, so I just picked the one that sounded easier or like more fun, I guess. And look, Far Cry 3 is an amazing game. We just got done glazing over it. And Far Cry 4 honestly just feels like a copy-paste experience, which isn't the worst thing, but you know, you gotta add something new to the table. And a lot of the times Far Cry 4 just doesn't feel like it does. That same core fundamental gameplay loop is there. Towers, outposts, side quests, main quest, maybe a few little new features, which we can go ahead and speed run through those right now. You can now throw bait to summon a predator to do your dirty work. There's a karma system for helping out rebels and doing side quests that help you unlock new guns and abilities. There's more guns. There's a new arena side mode that's basically a gauntlet style gameplay. There's a helicopter paraglider thing, which is actually probably my favorite thing about this game. You also have 4 fortresses on top of outposts that I swear are easier than some of the outposts. The leveling system and skill point system is loosely the same, but one thing I noticed that really bothered me was they removed the video preview of new skills. Was that really all that necessary? I mean, that was like my favorite thing in Far Cry 3 was like, oh shit, this is what that does, or like, you know, My monkey brain just can't like read things and understand it. I like to see it. So it's just like a quality of life thing they removed for no reason. But obviously with the new environment comes new wildlife. You have elephants, badgers, and rhinos are the new ones that come to mind. And then the actual map itself is solid. I do think I prefer the tropical vibe a little bit more. That's just a me thing. I mean, just because this is a winter map does not mean it's bad. And actually you get the wingsuit pretty early on, like as early as you want to buy it. And this map actually in some ways works much better for the wingsuit because it's obviously like very vertical based. But let's get back to the gameplay, which is fine. I don't think anything is upgraded in any way from the first game, but if one thing is definitely different, it's the missions in this game. Holy shit, are they so boring. For example, you do these missions for the Cheech and Chong of this game, and you go to Yodi Land for 5 minutes, which is fine. That's okay if it's like a one-off, you know, you get high with the boys and then do this little like trip sequence, which, you know, Far Cry loves doing that. But there's like 4 of these missions and they're all part of the main story, which just feels really lazy. Then you have the missions where you go fly up into like the summit of the mountain, kill a lieutenant, and be done with it. And there's like 4 of those missions as well that are also part of the main story. Then you have the Blood Diamond missions where you follow somebody into a bunker, get his key, steal the Blood Diamond, and leave. There are also 4 of those, except one's maybe you're in a plane, one you're in a boat, one you're in a car. I mean, it is just like really dull. That right there makes up like half the game, which are just levels that are essentially side quests. And these missions are fine to exist. I mean, like the side quests on Far Cry 3 aren't anything crazy, but these are passed as like main story quests, which is just not it. And on top of that, the levels that are supposed to be more in depth are also really boring. I remember there's one part where you're like jumping out of a plane onto another plane, and I was like, oh, this is sweet. And then it just like goes to a cutscene where you're just like on rails, and I was like, this could have been so cool if I actually got to do this myself. But like I said, Pig and Min did a lot for this game. At the very beginning, you're introduced to him like pretty hardcore, and it's like, damn, like he's pretty charismatic, like maybe he's not so bad after all. And I mean, the best part of the story is Ajay's family, just uncovering his past and his parents. I mean, that was really satisfying. And if you like Far Cry 3, you're gonna like this game, but in a lot of ways, it is just a recycled version. I mean, there is straight up like assets and sound design that is identical to Far Cry 3, but I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But it does get a little stale after a while. This game is still good. I recommend you play it. It is a B tier. Far Cry Primal is yet another spin-off title that takes place in 10,000 BC and follows Takars. He is separated from his tribe and starts over as leader of the Wenja tribe. Far Cry Primal is the biggest change to Far Cry we had ever seen for very obvious reasons, taking on a much more survival crafting approach on the series while still staying relatively true to its roots and the gameplay you're used to in a Far Cry. Outposts are back alongside new bonfires, skill points, XP, side quests, all are here. But there's an emphasis on hunting and crafting, which, as I said with Far Cry 3, was like my favorite thing about this game. The wildlife is pretty varied, and since you quite literally start with nothing, you craft every single thing that you will use in this game, and a lot of that stems from hunting. On top of that, part of your skill tree upgrades involve taming beasts that you can not only call into combat, but also ride, which is really fun. In Far Cry 4, you could ride elephants, but now you can ride like a saber-toothed tiger, which is sick. And even your binoculars are replaced with an owl, which is giving you a bird's eye view, quite literally, of what you're about to get into, and even he can attack for you, which is really cool. We also have a new mechanic in Primal with the whole village system. As you liberate outposts and do side quests, your village population grows, and with that you get a constant resource flow that you can then put back into your village to get new upgrades. I thought this was pretty cool. I don't think it's ever something I would grind, but you can get like pretty far off in this. The only reason I like did anything for it is because some upgrades were bound to like how good your village was doing. And onto the gameplay, where we have a pretty decent story, all things considered. The whole game is in like this caveman language, which is actually loosely based on a language that was like speculated to be around this time, which is pretty impressive that Ubisoft actually took the time to like loosely translate that. And it's pretty simple. I mean, it's like Takar, good tribe, the other 2 tribes, bad tribe, and you're just trying to kill them, and well, they're trying to kill you rather. However, where I have my biggest problem with this game is the combat. And I'm not saying, oh, there's no guns in this game, so the combat sucks. It's not like that whatsoever. I'm talking like specifically melee combat. All you have is like a power attack and a normal attack. There's no blocking or parrying or like anything else you can do with that. So it really just turns into like Minecraft, if I'm being honest. You're just kind of like hitting a person over and over again, especially if they're a heavy, just over and over and over and over again, and then kind of like shimmying around them to dodge their attacks. I mean, there's headshots, so I guess that's cool, but I mean, it really was a repetitive combat. The bows and arrows are sick, and like the throwing knives, really cool, but just like, especially when it comes to heavy enemies, you are literally just spamming left click, and it's really dull. You are able to throw your melee weapons, which came very useful when it came to the hunting segments, but since the combat is pretty bad, it does incentivize like using stealth more often, since you can do like a direct takedown on those heavy enemies. Also, as far as I know, this was the first game that allowed you to do a different heal other than the stim shot or like the manual like crack your finger back into place. There's way more options, and you also can actually choose which one is on your quick heal, or you can just like brew up that healing like on the spot too, which is really nice. Far Cry Primal is much different than the traditional Far Cry experience while still staying familiar to where like you're playing a Far Cry game, which I really enjoyed. But the combat just held it back for me, and it's getting a B tier. Far Cry 5 takes things to Hope County, Montana, where cult leader Joseph Seed has taken over the entire county. As the unnamed and mute deputy, you are sent to arrest Seed when things go south and are left stranded in Hope County. This game surpassed my expectations in a lot of ways, and I was really hesitant when I started the game when I realized like a lot of core Far Cry elements of like their gameplay are not here. There's no minimap, no more XP system whatsoever, no crafting whatsoever, and hunting is almost exclusively for cash. And on top of this, like I just said, your protagonist isn't really a protagonist, he's just a person who's a deputy. As stated previously, all the things I just talked about that are not in this game are some of my favorite things about Far Cry, but the things they add to the game are done so well that it makes up for it. The leveling system is now based off of challenges, which I didn't like at first, but really did grow on me. It directly made you diversify your gameplay to unlock new skill points. There's a new garage system that allows you to call on your unlocked and purchased cars, helicopters, planes, boats, and even plane boats to said garage. Yes, there are planes in this game, and they are a lot of fun to use. It honestly like opens up the game so much, and there's also a ton of vehicles to unlock, whether it be from like doing missions and people are like, oh, you can have my car or whatever, or you buy them. Like my favorite one was like the semi-truck machine gun one. But there's also a new feature with the companions. For the most part, they aren't going to do a lot of the work for you, but they do give you added buffs. The dog marks all your enemies. The helicopter girl gives you air support. Nick Rye can take out other planes, and then you can even control a grizzly bear named Cheeseburger. On the topic of characters, it's hard to relate to the protagonist when they don't say a single word, but the surrounding characters are great in this game. I really liked Herc. He's always just saying like some off-color shit, and like honestly like the comedy kind of hits here, I'm not gonna lie.
Hey man, I'm sorry. I don't want to go on assuming nobody's gender or nothing. I mean, I don't mean no disrespect. I just call all my homies dude or bro or man, you know, regardless of vegetalia or penile-ness. Whoa, deja voodoo, man. Have we met before?
And although the story is extremely unrealistic, I enjoyed it for what it was. The idea of like a cult just like completely taking over like a portion of the state just would never hit. And I will say the cultists in this game, like they kind of reuse the same AI. Like it looks like an army of like Jared Leto's you're just slaughtering, which was kind of funny. And the way you progress this game is by doing missions in 3 sectors of the maps that are each ruled by one of Joseph's siblings. And once you've done each of those in the respected region and earned enough resistance points, you get to fight that sibling head on. The resistance point system was pretty unique because in theory, you could barely touch the main story and just do side quests and events to like farm resistance points to face that sibling head on, which was kind of neat. But what wasn't really neat was how many times you got captured in this game. I swear in each region, you get captured like at least 3 times, and it was just so annoying. Like no matter where you were, they would just come grab you and hunt you down, and then you would just break out immediately, which also like not only made the cult look like super weak, but also further fueled like this story being extremely unrealistic, which was, I'm not gonna lie, like I really did hate that about this game, but whatever. I do like Joseph Seed as the antagonist, and he's often got you thinking like maybe he's right all along, and then the ending happens and you're like, oh shit, he was. And the missions across the board in this game are honestly peak. There's a lot of memorable ones, and even a lot of the side missions were pretty fleshed out. Also, I'm pretty sure Far Cry 4 allowed for co-op in your game, but this game was like, it was like a little more down your throat. I didn't get to experience it because I didn't have anyone to play with. But there's a lot of times I was playing this game and I was like, man, like this moment right here, whether it be in a mission or just like traveling the world, like it would be a lot of fun to experience this game with someone else. And if one of my friends had ever played this game and wanted to, I would for sure be down to run it again with them in co-op. And I also want to say the gunplay felt pretty different in this game. I think they kind of like finally switched from hit scan to like projectile. I could be wrong, maybe Far Cry 4 did, but it felt like you actually had to like lead your shot with snipers and stuff, which is pretty cool, very realistic. But I will say the takedown animations kind of took a back seat in this game. I feel like you're never stabbing someone. It's always just like the same like break their neck animation, which was kind of lame. But overall, Far Cry 5 shattered my expectations and in some ways is better than Far Cry 3, but I think Far Cry 3 is a better Far Cry game, if that makes any sense. Regardless, Far Cry 5 gets an S tier. Far Cry New Dawn is a direct sequel spin-off to Far Cry 5. Spoiler alert, the way Far Cry 5 ends is a nuclear bomb goes off and then it's like America's a nuclear wasteland. Once again, you're taking on a silent protagonist role. You're part of the Prosperity Homestead where you're just trying to live peacefully. And I and pretty much anyone who's played this game will tell you up front that this is not a $60 game. This is maybe a $15, $20 game, like with a $60 price tag. And I think that's why this game gets a lot of bad rap. For what it is, it's not like inherently terrible, but let's dive in anyways. For starters, the game is the same Hope County map with an apocalypse makeover, plenty of recycled characters from the first game with a few new ones, but most of all, this game is extremely short in comparison. And antagonists are pretty important to Far Cry, and this game has like the worst ones by a landslide. I mean, these twins, I don't even remember their names. Their whole thing is just like, this is our turf, leave us alone, and it's just so stupid. It's so dumb.
You made us look
sleepy.
That ends now!
Dude.
We're gonna take everything that you hold dear.
What?
Starting with your home. And if
These
you
antagonists
take it,
suck.
Let's get to the gameplay, which kind of has like loose RPG elements to it. But mind you, this game still doesn't have an XP system. You're still doing challenges, which again, I said I didn't hate, but for a game that like wants to have RPG elements, I think that would have been way more appropriate here. You have tiers to your weapons, like 1, 2, 3, and then elite. And if you have like stuck with like a level 1 gun against like a level 3 enemy, like the enemy just becomes a bullet sponge, which is so dumb. Like, I mean, you can literally like be shooting someone point blank with someone who doesn't have a helmet with a shotgun, and then it just like barely takes their health down. Granted, this definitely like makes you want to go and like upgrade your guns, which is important, but I mean, you just can't really like cheese the game the way I like to, where you like do the harder parts first. Like there's just none of that in this game. Also, when you craft these new guns, like if you go from a level 1 to a level 2 gun, the gun is just the gun. There's no attachments you can change to it. There's actually no type of attachments like customization to any gun in this game, which again, for a game that's trying to be like RPG-ish, you think they would have like full customization, and there is just none in this game. But hey, at least you get to pimp out your character. That's pretty cool. Also, mind you, customizing your gun has been around since Far Cry 3 and like every Far Cry with the gun since then, so why would they take it out in this one? The way you unlock and upgrade things is strictly through grinding resources, and these resources are pretty abundant, but they're pretty tedious to go and get. Like, it's literally just find them in the real world, like on shelves and stuff, and it kind of does tell you where they are. But still, it is tedious enough to where like it's designed to just like be a waste of time. Like, you're gonna spend 30 minutes doing this just to get like one gun. But then unlike Far Cry 5, the microtransactions in this game are just shoved down your throat, and like the gameplay is for sure designed to be so grindy that like it's gonna make some people buy this, which obviously, again, I don't do that, but it's definitely like predatory in that way. I will say the idea for this game was actually really well done. I mean, I think this is a perfect setting for a Far Cry game, and you even have some like pretty decent missions, but for the most part the missions are stupid. And like you have like you see Joseph Seed again, spoiler alert once again, and even blesses you with like some secret powers. And I'll be honest, I actually liked the powers. I know a lot of people didn't, but it was kind of fun. This game isn't as bad as everyone makes it out to be. It's definitely not good. Like, if it would have been sold for like 15 bucks, it'd probably be a really good game. But the fact that this is supposed to be a full-fledged game, it is not. It is definitely a DLC game. It is a D tier. And here we are with the most recent installment being Far Cry 6. Taking place on a Caribbean island, Yara, which as far as I'm concerned is just Cuba. You play as Danny, who is your male or female protagonist for this game. Gus Fring is your antagonist, who is the dictator over Yara. And Danny is basically trying to unify all the guerrilla factions together to take down Gus. It's a pretty standard Far Cry story. Bad guy, large area, people under them, you know, liberate. That's the whole thing here. I mean, this game is fine. I saw a lot of people like really hate this game, and again, I don't think it's all that bad. Technically, as of me, like in this moment of me talking right now, I haven't finished it yet. I'm pretty close, but it's just kind of got a little stale on me. The story is honestly just something we've seen before. Not a single character really stands out or is compelling aside from Anton, and he honestly steals like every scene he's in, but there's just not that many. And that's what kind of pissed me off about this game, and I've heard a lot of controversy in the marketing, and the marketing just had him everywhere, and he's really just barely in this game. It's kind of like Zendaya with Dune Part 1. And honestly, like the other characters in this game, they're just straight up cringe. I'll be honest. Like, it's like millennial humor.
Oh, that's just foreplay.
Oh my, he's... What the hell is this?
Okay.
But the gameplay is the same except for a few changes. And one of those changes that infuriated me was they got away with the whole skill point system and like upgrading new abilities. I don't know why the they did this, but it is the worst decision they've ever made in a Far Cry game. Now, instead to have like these new abilities and like, you know, takedowns or whatever, it's bound to your clothing. You can only have like a hat, gloves, whatever, you know, like each article of clothing at a time, so you'll never be able to have like multiple abilities at once, or at least the ones you want, which really pissed me off. I mean, like I said with Far Cry 3, you know, like using those abilities in tangent when the game becomes harder is really satisfying, and now that's just not there anymore. But hey, the minimap's back at least, right? I do want to say the gun customization in this game is probably the best it's ever been. You can craft new attachments and whatnot, but then you can also like have different ammo types like you could before, but there's just way more options and like perks on guns and just mods. And then also like the Supremo system is like your backpack, which dictates like what lethals you can have. And then it also has like an ultimate ability that has like a cooldown. I don't know why I said that, but like it's pretty much what it is. My favorite one was the rocket one. I don't know why I would use anything else, but like it instantly just like takes down whatever like vehicle is in front of you. And it was pretty useful, but the other ones just seemed kind of useless if I'm being honest. This game is also really buggy. I had multiple instances where like my friendly AI just like would not let me progress the level, and I had to like kill myself and restart it. There was also a part where I just loaded up the game and I could not move. So I think right now I am spamming my W and S key and I just can't move. So I just load up the game. So that's dope. The game honestly does feel like a little unpolished, especially for being out for almost like 2 or 3 years now. I would think these bug fixes would be fixed, but like I ran into the most bugs in this game, like collectively, than all the other games put together, except for maybe like Far Cry Vengeance or something like that. It was so buggy, in fact, I actually accidentally triggered the early ending for this game. As you know, in like Far Cry 4 and 5, you can like end the game like right as it starts, and I accidentally did this because the waypoint they gave me was the waypoint to end the game, and I drove off and I was like, what, like this doesn't make, and then I was like, oh shit, the game's over. When I relaunch, I had the correct waypoint and actually continued the game like I was supposed to. But like, I don't think, maybe I did something wrong, but like, I don't think the waypoint was supposed to be where it was. But like I said, I still haven't finished this game in this exact moment in time. I enjoyed my time with it, but it's really just the same old song and dance with Far Cry. Maybe once I finish it can go higher or lower, but I'm gonna play it safe and give it a C. But this is my final ranking right here. I know one of you disagrees with this. I know actually like literally all of you disagree with this. There's no way this is exactly how you perceive the Far Cry games. Which one of these takes is terrible? Please roast me down below. In my opinion, I think if Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 5 could like make a game together and like use both those mechanics as one, like we'd have the perfect Far Cry game. And I hope like if Far Cry 7's a thing, that's what we get. But go ahead and check out some of my other videos. If you liked, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. And thank you so much for watching.